I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, August the 26th, brought to you in part by Noromycin by Norbrook. Noromycin 300 LA is an economical 300 milligram oxytetracycline that delivers the same amount of antibiotic as the 200 milligram options in a lower volume dose. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Turning the tide. And a week ago, we thought we were in a runaway train market. I mean, we were going to the moon. Nothing was going to stop it. We weren't slowing down for anything. Both fats and feeders, everything was just gangbusters, and there was nothing in the world that could slow it down. Now, here we are a week later, and we're running into some speed bumps. And in fact, the market is kind of held back here mid to late week on both fats and feeders. And on our last visit, I kind of blamed it on the corporates. And that's anybody's job is to buy cattle as cheap as you can buy them. It's not a contest to see the most you can give for cattle, except for maybe a few farmer feeders out there that seem to have no end. But for the most part, your cattle feeders are trying to buy cattle that they think will pencil out. They're trying to buy cattle that'll work, and they don't want to give any more for them than they have to. Well, I've talked to some guys here, after our last visit there, and was blaming the corporates on everything, and they said, in fact, your country cattle, the yearlings that are moving right now, your corporates have the best bids that are out there as far as in the southern plains. Now, different story in the northern plains, but in the southern plains, we've emptied out the Flint Hills. We've emptied out the Osage. There's not a whole lot of grazing to go around anywhere else. I mean, maybe over in the foothills of the Rockies that'll come later this fall. But a lot of your bigger independents that buy up those best feeding cattle of the whole year, those Flint Hill and Osage cattle, especially those double stock cattle that will just absolutely gain their heads off whenever you put them on feed, those guys are getting pretty full. I mean, they've just taken delivery of tens of hundreds of thousands of cattle, and then they're mostly full. And so who's left in the southern plains but most of your corporates? Now you get into the northern plains, that's a whole different story, and it's kind of like the way that our fed cattle are selling, where we're running at a big disparage between the northern plains sales and the southern plains sales. But the guys that are feeding in the north, they've got the corn right there, freight's really high, especially your farmer feeders that have on-farm storage. Nobody knows about that corn right there. And they're going to feed a lot of that. There's some damaged corn out there, especially in your western corn belt. It makes awfully good feed. And those guys are still going out at these yearling cattle, and they're buying up the calves too, especially for fall delivery. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. But on your fat cattle, we saw that, we opened the week and it was looking like the last several weeks like we were going to start out a buck or two better, and then we were going to move up from there. Well, we started out with your regional packers, getting up there bidding in the top part of last week's range and creaming the show list a little bit. But your big four packers are just kind of holding back a little bit. And come Wednesday morning, they just decided that they didn't want to give quite that much anymore. Well, same deal with them. You can't hardly blame them if they don't have to. But we haven't sold a lot of cattle this week. Less than 55,000 in your 5-area feeding region. And here we are on Friday. I'm not expecting a whole lot of sales of fat cattle on Friday, so we may have already seen what we're going to get. And looking at next week, they're going to be buying for a short week the following week with Labor Day holiday coming up here. So maybe they've got enough cattle, of course, with all the formula deals they've got and the grid cattle and the contracts and everything coming in. They may not need to buy any more cattle on the spot market here on cash. So, it's amazing how we were in such a runaway market, and all of a sudden those guys have got out there and they've turned this thing, and then they've kind of squashed it a little bit. Even on your calf sales, I mean, we saw early in the week, your Bighorn Classic up there in Sheridan, Wyoming, they were selling calves really wild and everything, and I told you guys on the last visit that we had established a market for fall delivery, ball and 6-weight calves, well over $2 a pound. Well, we come in there on Thursday and they were cheaper. And the board wasn't significantly lower. It was your corn that everybody's worried about. We've had the crop tour going on out there, and they've got out, walked in those fields and taken a sample of them and decided that maybe these crops aren't going to be as great as what we thought they might be, and we weren't really all that wild about them before, but we assumed that the eastern corn belt was going to make up for everything that we lost in the western corn belt. And in fact, your crop tour thought that maybe your western corn belt was worse than they thought it was going to be. The center of the corn belt right there in Iowa had more damaged corn than what we thought there might be out there, and maybe your eastern was just going to be kind of par at best. So it caused your corn to go up big there earlier in the week. It's kind of come back a little bit now. Beans have come all the way back from the big surge that we saw earlier in the week on them. But it's just, it's amazing how quick we can turn things on a dime here. And I'm not saying that we're in a lower market by any means. And I'm not saying that this rally is over. I mean, short term, long term, every term you can look at, cattle are going to be in big demand. We've got light numbers of them, which means the demand is going to be up for them. And we're in a driving market, and cattle are going to be a whole lot higher a year from now and 2 years from now than they are right now. But as far as this little rally that we've seen here for the last several weeks, they've kind of squashed it a little bit. And we've seen that. And on your feeder cattle, it is most prevalent in the southern plains because the northern buyers are not digging down into them as much as they have been all summer, because we feed cattle longer than we used to. We feed them for at least 150 days. Well, that's January, guys, and it gets cold up there in January, and these cattle that don't have a lot of hair, they don't have a lot of skin, and then they're not comfortable in it, even though they're going to have a lot of bark on them by then. Your northern buyers just aren't dipping down in there. And we saw in your big Oklahoma sales this week, they said the Yankees were not as prevalent in their buying, and that means your northern orders. But it's definitely a different world at this time this week than it was last week at this time. But we're still in a good place. We're going to continue to sell cattle good. We're going to see where we have our best consignments of cattle, especially in the northern plains and in the Midwest. They're going to bring a big price, and I'm going to give you some more of those here on this feeder flash. Some big prices there, but it's just kind of softened a little bit here. I want to wish one of my friends a happy birthday that's coming up on Saturday the 27th. Dwayne Martin Jr. from out in California. I had the opportunity to meet him out there on one of my visits, and he kind of left an impression on me, and we've stayed in contact there. He's all about preserving the cattle industry the way that we see it, with leverage in your fed cattle cash market and continuing to see price transparency. He's joined up with U.S. Cattlemen's Association. He promotes that, and I definitely think that he's thinking about things in the right way. I also had the opportunity to meet his father, Dwayne Martin Sr., when I was out there in California there a couple of years ago, and he's kind of an icon in California ranching there. And Dwayne Martin Sr. passed there a week or so ago, and I neglected to tell you guys about that. Maybe I didn't feel that most of my listeners in the central part of the U.S. would know who that was, but you guys out west definitely know who that is. But happy birthday to Dwayne Martin Jr. One of the biggest things I remember about him when we were having the big Trump rally at Nevada Livestock Marketing out in Fallon, Nevada, that I went out and participated in. He sent brand new pots, cattle pots, to perimeter the whole block there where we were having the rally, because your Secret Service was wanting that protection there, and he had acidized trailers and slicked up red pots there to go around the perimeter of the whole rally there, and it was impressive to me, and he's an impressive guy, and I like him very much. Happy birthday to him. Let's talk about your board. On Thursday, August live cattle futures were down just 22 cents. We haven't seen a big hiccup in your live cattle, but 141.10. And a lot of people call that the Texas CME contract. Well, they traded most of the cattle in Texas at 142 this week. 141.10, that's back from that market, but not a long ways back. And in fact, they traded some cattle at 141.5, not a lot, but on Thursday in Texas. So it's pretty much on par with where your market's at in the Southern Plains anyway. October live cattle futures down 12 cents at 143.65. Your back months on live cattle mixed from down a dime to up a quarter. So not a whole lot there. I mean, just kind of a lackadaisical live cattle contract pretty much all week this week. Now the feeder cattle has been a little bit more topsy-turvy. August feeder cattle futures on Thursday were up 65 cents basically because corn was down some at 181.87, and that's trading just a slight premium to what your index values are right here at the end of the contract month. September up $1.22 at 184.25. Your back months were all up pretty good from 87 cents to up $1.07. Corn was down 7.25 cents as your crop tour got mostly out east and showed a little bit better than what they'd seen earlier in the week, which kind of scared the market higher. But corn Chicago Board of Trade futures ended regular trading at $6.50 a bushel on Thursday. Beans down 25.75 cents. Took back all that big rush that they had earlier in the week in one session there. Ending trading session on Thursday at 14.31 cents a bushel. Fat cattle trade very, very modest, hardly anything there. And like I said, we haven't sold even 55,000 in your 5-area feeding region. We've been selling up in the 80s somewhere here lately, but we may not see any more trade on Friday. If it is, it's probably going to be an outside exclusive deal. But talk about your different areas. Colorado Confidential, of course, we can say that almost every day. Iowa, 800 head confirmed on Thursday, just over 14,000 for the week. That's less than half what they've been trading. But live sales in Iowa on Thursday from 146 to 148 and 230 dressed, which is towards the lower end of last week's spread. And you really look at your sales late in the week here in the Northern Plains, and they're like $1 to $3 lower than last week, but we haven't finished it up yet, so we could see a surge in here. We don't know how bad the Packers want them. Nebraska sold 1,000 on Thursday, confirmed about 20,700 for the week, which is light for them also. Live sales only on Thursday at 144, and that was $1 lower than anything that we saw last week. Kansas, only 100 head, just a few off cattle sold, nothing really to test the market. Just over 10,000 in Kansas. That's sure light for them. Texas, 300 head confirmed on Thursday. Only 8,300 head for the week. And the only thing that we saw on Thursday was some 141.50. Now, we've sold almost everything in Texas at 142. There was even some 142.5 midweek, and it was looking like it was going to trend just a little bit higher, and just 300 head at 141.5 is not going to pull, of course, your Texas weighted average lower, but that goes to tell you how hard they were struggling on trying to get a trade there when they start splitting hairs at 141.5. But, it was mostly steady in Texas and the Southern Plains, but, kind of moving down towards the bottom of the price range. Box beef cutout values were mixed again, and your cutouts don't really know which way to go. They're just kind of settling right in here. Your packers are not really liking having to give more for fat cattle every week and taking less for their cutouts. But on Thursday afternoon, choice cuts up 71 cents at 263.54. Selects were down 8 cents at 237.54. Talk about your slaughter. It was running ahead of schedule all week until we got to Thursday, and now we're just back at par from last week, 499,000 through the first 4 days of this week. And we always see disappointing Saturdays, and I don't doubt that we won't see that again, but that 499,000 was the same as last week, but 33,000 more than the same week a year ago. Actual slaughter information come back for the week ending August the 13th, which I don't understand at all, and it just seems like kind of a quirk there. But your average dressed steer carcass weight was up 9 pounds from the previous report at 901 pounds. Now, I cannot explain that. I don't know what the deal is with that. I've heard people say, well, the weather's been really good, the cattle are getting big up north. It's been really good the week before, and it's just really good after that. But that 901 pounds is 3 pounds bigger than a year ago, and just 5 pounds from the all-time biggest average dressed steer carcass weight that we've ever seen just a couple of years ago. But I can't justify that. I can't, I can confirm that that's what USDA reported, and I worked with USDA long enough to know that it may not be right, but by God, it's official. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV Auction. Late in the day on Thursday, sitting at 180.03, down 64 cents. Been down the last 2-3 sessions here. And your CME cash feeder cattle index, the latest available, was 181, and it's retreating also. So I would expect that your spot August feeder cattle, hardly anybody playing it, is going to be lower here these last few sessions before it matures there, because it's got to line right up with that for cash settlement. Talk about your big sales on Thursday. Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas had 3,200 head. And your feeder steers, it was a little bit mixed trend there, but feeder steers weighing over 8, $2 to $4 higher. That's kind of what we've been expecting all along. But 600 to 800 pound feeder steers steady to $3 lower. Calves $7 to $15 higher. We've been seeing your calves selling really well. We're going to have a great start on wheat grazing because we've had some moisture there. They're not having to dust it in. They're putting it in really nice. Going to be some deep moisture there to get it up. Going to need a little more to get it to growing. Feeder heifers $3 to $6 higher. Heifer calves steady to $3 lower. Kind of a topsy-turvy deal what you get out of your Kansas market reporters. Pretty regular, but I had a stick-out deal in Pratt that impressed me. 60 head, 798, or same as 800 pound steers, bring 188.60. That's a big-time quote. How about Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas? 3,500 head for them in north central Kansas, and steers were steady to $4 higher. Heifers were kind of uneven, but they also had a stick-out deal in Salina. 63 head of steers weighed 905 at 184 and a quarter. I want to talk about your Zoetis stick-out sale of the day. It was Mitchell Livestock Marketing, formerly Mitchell Livestock. But my friend Jared Herman has now taken over Mitchell's sale barn there. He's a Cherokee sales company in Cherokee, Oklahoma. He's a young guy. He's a cattle marketer. He's aggressive. He's growing in the business right there. And we had some guys that were getting some age on them up there in Mitchell, and they decided that they wanted to kind of bow down, and so they were sold out to Jared Herman. He's going to keep things going just like he's always kept them going. He's going to keep Mitchell going. Got a great facility there. He's going to continue to feature those big heavy feeders there and serving those people there in the eastern part of South Dakota. But they had a good sale on Mitchell on Thursday. 3,900 head there, big time sale. Mostly steady to as much as $4 higher. Going to give you a big time quote out of there on some heifers. 138 head of feeder heifers weighed 884 at 179 and a quarter. That'd be an impressive steer quote, guys. But big time quote out of Mitchell Livestock Marketing. Got a couple quotes out of some sales that we don't talk about all the time because I'm not receiving data from them through Cattle Market Central. And it reminds me, if you guys have a sale barn and you have a computerized clerking system, sign up with us. It doesn't cost anything. All you have to do is we have to match up a few cloud numbers there, and we'll get that stuff sent into them. And don't worry about us manipulating your system. We're not going in to get it. It's being pushed out to us. And we've got over 200 sale barns that are coming into us. And those of you that are not getting quoted on the feeder flash, that is the reason why. And just give us a call, get in touch with one of us. We can do that. It's seamless. We can have it working by the next week. But Mobridge, South Dakota, I've been up there and done some bull sales before, but we don't receive data from them. We'd really like to, but I did get a quote out of there from a Feeder Flash gang member. Talked about some grass steers in Mobridge, 68 head of them, weighed 875 and $194. Big time quote. But your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of another sale barn that we don't receive information from regularly. Presho Livestock in Presho, South Dakota. Zach Ballard, friend of mine, the auctioneer there, sent me the quotes out of there. 70 head, 810-pound steers at $200.25. That's your Feeder Flash for Friday.